Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel, another analysis video of a miniature chess game. On the agenda today, we have a game, we're going to take a look at a game from the recent 2024 Rapid World Championship between Grandmaster Maxim Dlugy, playing with white pieces. Maxim is a very strong USA Grandmaster, formerly from the Soviet Union, currently rated 25-14. He is on the older side, so he's a veteran by now, but a very, very good and fast rapid and blitz player. With the black pieces, we have Uganda's top chess player, Harold Wanyama, a FIDE master, currently rated 25-54. Remember, to become a FIDE master, you either have to win certain national and zonal championships, which is very difficult, or cross 2300 FIDE rating, which is also extremely difficult. So we're talking about players up in the 2 to 3% percentile best players in the world. Don't be fooled by his 21-54 rating. He is a very strong player. Of course, a grandmaster such as Dlugy is obviously already in the 0.5 percentile of the world's best players. And in this game, we're going to take another look once more at the London system, and more specifically in this game, if you are a London system player or you want to put it in your repertoire, this is a very important game to study. I would definitely add this game to any collection of London system model games to show to your students or to learn by yourself. Let's take a look at the game. So Maxim opens with d4 and plays bishop to f4, which is the modern way of playing the London, delaying knight to f3, because in some instances, in some circumstances, we will play f4 before playing knight to f3 further on in the game. More importantly, against certain variations with g6, we might go to knight c3. There are some subtleties, although most of the times, as in this game, knight to f3 and bishop to f4, they end up transposing. But there are some interesting subtleties. For example, I seem to remember that in the line with c5, and some very quick queen b6s. In this line, it was generally more important to have your knight on d2 than having your knight on f3. For example, to avoid certain traps like bishop to f5, while when you're taking here, you're losing on b2 and a1. So there are certain subtleties which in certain lines, having the knight on d2 is better than having the knight on f3 earlier on in the opening or move order. So bishop to f4 is basically taken over knight to f3, but both are perfectly playable. In this game, Wanyama goes for e6, which is the solid approach. He doesn't really want to bring his bishop out to these squares, so he just plays e6 and gives priority to the development of the queen side, the king side, his king side position. This is actually the line that I play. It's one of the two lines I play when I'm facing the London. And it's one of the lines I teach most of my students because it is quite solid and it's a very easy way to finish your development. But one of the differences after knight to d2, c5, c3, I teach my students the move bishop to d6, opposing the bishop on f4. Whereas in the game, Wanyama played first knight to c6. It may seem similar, but I can assure you it isn't. There's an important detail that we're going to see in the game, which makes knight to c6 perfectly playable, but not in conjunction with the move bishop to d6. And let me explain. So after bishop to d6, white generally drops back to g3, we castle, and white plays knight g to f3. This is the main line. Now black shouldn't take on g3 until white has castled. Because if we take prematurely, then white gets this open file with the bishop on d3. It's very clear that this is dangerous. So after knight g to f3, I generally play queen to c7, a developing move, bishop to d3, and now I play knight b d7. I don't play knight to c6 here, because in this case, white can take on c5, and we can't take back with the bishop because our queen is hanging. So I play knight b to d7, and actually in one game in France, I faced pawn takes pawn here, but I can capture with the knight or with the queen, so it's all okay. After castle, now I swap on g3 and I play e5. And I've played this position before, and also some of my students. And here both queen to e7 and queen to h5 promise black a very safe and comfortable game. There are some other lines for white obviously in this position, but this is a very safe and good approach against the London. Bishop to d6, castle, queen to c7, and above all, knight b to d7. Now, when you play knight to c6, you can still try and get to this position. But now, if you go queen to c7, which would be the corresponding move, then you might get hit by pawn takes pawn. So Wanyama plays b6, which is also perfectly okay. He wants to go bishop to b7 and maybe later on play this move here. But of course now queen to e2, bishop to b7. Notice how Dlugy very intelligently doesn't play castle. He's still waiting for black maybe to swap here and take with the pawn. And also, while these two bishops are being attacked, the queen doesn't have so much movement because we can't drop the bishop. Also notice that with this setup by black, e5 is hardly possible. We would need to put the queen on e7 or c7, and then maybe white will exchange on d6 and effectively win a tempo. So although white could castle now, Dlugy takes his time to play rook to d1, which is a very interesting move. Doesn't seem to be doing much, but it is actually doing quite a bit. Now queen to c7, and now he plays e4. And this is very strong because now he's threatening e5, winning a piece. So the computer here, the engine, gives the next move for black. A very difficult move to make. Wanyama played pawn takes pawn, which is generally the move you're going to do in this position, but this lands him already in a weaker position, actually a bad position. The computer suggests knight to h5. Not at all an easy move to do. And here there are several ways to proceed, but bishop takes d6, followed by e5, and now just queen to e3 sort of highlights the bad position of the knight on h5. And if you're looking at this with black, you hardly will go into this position. You have a black knight stranded on h5. The bishop on b7 is blocked in by your pawns. My bishop on d3 is very strong. You don't really want to go into this position. However, the engine said that if now I play f5, black can hold this position. Okay, I still think this is better for white, and he has more options and possibilities. In any case, the computer evaluation is only slightly worse for black, so this could be possible. I actually would just suggest to go for the line with knight to d7 and not play knight to c6. In any case, e4, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes, queen takes, hitting h7, g6, and now here comes the key move of the line. We're going to take advantage of all these tactical threats, but also the pin on b7. We play pawn takes pawn. Now, the bishop can't recapture because of the queen on c7, so he has to catch up with the book. And now take, and boom. Now we see why the rook on d1 was there for a reason. Instead of playing castling, white has used the tempo for the castle to do the other moves. And with the rook on d1, he's actually trying to win a piece now. So Wanyama found queen to c7 protecting the bishop, but now this pin is very, very annoying, and actually quite hard to resolve favorably. So knight to e5 hits the knight, black needs to protect, and finally castle. Of course, now black has to be very careful. I mean, rook to d7 is already a very serious threat. I was wondering why white couldn't play rook to d7 straight away, which he actually can, but I suspect there may be some tactics here related to the king in the center. Maybe queen takes b2. It says here queen to b5. This also might be reasonable, yes, to provoke c4 first, and then maybe check and highlight the king in the center. So rook to d7 wouldn't win a piece yet, but castle now actually threatens rook to d7. Black plays rook d8, but notice that the pin is still there, and it's not easy to unpin. So white takes advantage to play h4, with the idea of playing h5 and possibly h6 and creating some mating threats on the king side. Now again, the engine suggests that the best defense here would be to swap rooks and propose another rook swap. I've calculated this position, and I think that white has the edge in the endgame. Maybe a very strong endgame player could hold this to a draw, but it's still going to be difficult. The knight is very strong on e5. The king can't come to the center because we'll lose the pawn on f7. And if black plays f6, we jump to d7, hitting many pawns. And meanwhile, white's king is going to go to c4 with a better pawn structure. Even b4 would immediately create an outside passed pawn for white. So this is a difficult ending to defend. Wanyama played knight to a5, proposing the exchange of queens, but without conceding the rook, the file, which I think is good. But of course, here Dlugy doesn't exchange queens. He plays queen to f4, still hitting the pawn on f7, so that the black queen doesn't have a mobility, but also with the idea of pushing h5, h6, and queen to f6. Black came back, proposing a move repetition, and Dlugy pinned again, but now from f3 instead of f4, e4, which is better because we not only defend the rook, but also we're hitting the pawn on f7. So this is actually an improvement. Again, rook takes, rook d8, but now I think Dlugy would have played rook to e1, keeping the pin and forcing black to go passively again. The computer suggests h5, trying to stop my own h5. Rook fe1, with the idea that against queen c7, for example, we play take, queen to f6, with the idea rook to d7, rook d1 and rook d7. As you can see, black is having a lot of trouble. Also, there are some sacrifices of the knight for all of these four pawns. Black is busted here. So black goes for knight a5 again, trying to exchange queens, queen to f6, and now rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and rook to f8, but now rook to d7, fantastic move, queen takes b2, and knight to f7 and mates. So this was how the game ended. Wanyama actually resigned after rook to d7, keeping the game under the 25 move limit for the miniature feature. And as you can see, I definitely suggest analyzing this game again if you are a London player, because I do think it has a lot of the ideas, both strategic and tactical ideas, that make the London a perfectly playable system with white. So I do hope you've enjoyed. As always, leave a comment below if you want to. I'm checking every day all the comments and answering interesting questions if they appear. And as always, have fun. We'll see each other on the boards. I do hope you improve your chess and get to know these players through these videos. See you in the next video.